Hi. So we're doing a deck profile about a deck that started as a pre-con upgrade, ended up taking an entire nosedive to something that it wasn't trying to be, and is now something completely different while still using the same commander, but still using a good portion of the cards from the pre-con as well. Not a massive amount, but enough that you can argue to mild extent that technically it's an upgraded pre-con, but I'm pretty sure the people at the table who are playing with you will probably spit in your eye for saying that it's a pre-con upgrade. So we are playing Yuma Proud Protector. Now, this is a deck that says, hey, I want lands going into the graveyard so he is cheaper, and then I can use him to sack lands to get past the command attacks and get a token and draw cards and get a Varnage. That sounds kind of fun, but also boring. So, we went down the route of landfall. Yes, we're doing a landfall deck profile. So, this is my Yuma Proud Protector landfall deck. I will be posting, like I did with all of them, I forgot to say it in the Tom Bombadil deck, but every single deck profile like I have on Moxfield, and actually this one isn't updated on Moxfield. Like, this was one of the ones that is like really due an upgrade, so I might actually do that tonight. So as this first uploads, there will not be a Moxfield link in the description, but if there is one, it means I've updated it and it is now ready to keep being updated. So that being said, let's go through the deck profile. First off, we have a Scoot Swarm, obvious landfall. Like, why wouldn't you? On the same event, Bristly Bill, it's landfall. Why wouldn't you? Again, Lotus Cobra, it is landfall. Why wouldn't you? I'm going to say that a lot on some of these landfall cards. Then we go into Omnath, Locus of Rage. It is one of the landfall cards that was actually in the precon, and it ends up being quite good, so I have kept it in because it is a decent landfall card. Next we have the Avenger of Zendikar, which again was in the precon and also is a landfall deck. Why wouldn't you? We have Tireless Provisioner. I forgot it's a Tireless, so I'll move this. So it's a landfall that says, hey, make a treasure or a food. Talking of which, here's a Tireless Tracker that makes a clue every time. It also, every time you crack a clue, for whatever reason it be, whether it be to actually draw the card or if you have a thing that sacrifices artifacts, you'll get a +1/+1 on her. Next for the landfall, we have the Rampaging Baloths. Again, why wouldn't you? We also have, I always forget how to pronounce this, a Bun Muldire Ancestor, I think it is. Basically, it lets you do a load of like land shenanigans, like turning your lands into creatures, and there will be a lot of lands. We then also have a Phylath World Sculptor, which is basically Avenger of Zendikar, but for non... Is it non-basics or basics? It's one of the two. Basically, it like splits it, so it's not as good as Avenger, but it does do some good stuff. Then we go into Felidar Retreat as another landfall card. Basically, hey, you hit a land drop, here's a cat beast. And then we have our last landfall. Weird that there's so little landfall in like that form, but there are ways that you'll see. We have Morag, the Fury of Akun, which is basically, hey, extra combat steps. And then, what landfall deck would be complete without a Panharmonicon so that every landfall trigger triggers twice? I mean, I would have thought that part would have been obvious. So we do all this, and I will put the Scoot Swarm at the top of the pile. So that is all of the landfall, weirdly. Next we're going to go into what I like to call the land synergies that are not landfall. So you've got stuff like your Life from the Loam that lets you dredge into more lands. You have your Lumra, Bellow of the Woods, that allows you to just beat people's faces. You have a Desert Warfare that allows you to just keep recycling your deserts. You have a Hazoram that allows you to keep recycling your deserts and make tokens. You have an Oracle of Moldaya that allows you to play extra lands per turn. You know, like basic land stuff. That does help the landfall bit. Talking of which, is a Dryad of Elysian Grove that allows you to play more lands per turn. Then you have a Kiri, the Talented Sprout, basically the other commander of the precon. You still run it because you are still running a decent amount of plants and tree folk, and you're also going to get lands back from your graveyard from this, so still worth it. Then you have an Ancient Green Warden that allows you to play lands from the graveyard. You have an expedition map that will allow you to search for any land, because I'll tell you now, there is more utility lands than there are basics, obviously. Then we have a Dune channeler that turns all lands into deserts, which triggers off Yuma, because Yuma makes a plant warrior every time you get rid of a desert. You have a Mending of Dominaria that allows you to get all of those lands again, which will trigger all of your landfall a lot. Then you have a Vengeful Regrowth that allows you to just get a load of plant warriors. Then you have a Scaretiller that allows you to get lands from the graveyard. Then you have an Eccentric Farmer that will mill you cards and then get you a land from your graveyard. You have Turnbow Sower that cares about milling cards into the graveyard. You have a World Shaper that will mill cards to your graveyard and then get you your lands from your graveyard. You then have a Ronan Excavator, which will get you lands from your graveyard. I will do this so you can sort of see them, because I'll be honest, the glare isn't great. Then we have 6, which allows you to play all of your cards from your graveyard if you discard a land. So you get to recast anything. Isn't that fun? It just costs an extra cost of discarding a land specifically. Very good. Now we'll go into what I like to call the game enders. You have your Crater Hoof Behemoth, because you're making a load of tokens off of the landfall triggers. And then, if you don't want to pay 9 mana for your Crater Hoof Behemoth, why don't you pay 5 and play an Overwhelming Stampede instead? Basically does the same thing, just for 1 turn, which is what Crater Hoof does for 1 turn. So, you know, it basically does the thing. Then we have Goblin Bombardment that basically allows you to sack all of the tokens you're making. And then this one doesn't seem like a game ender, but you can go pseudo infinite with it, which is greater good. So you sack one of your 4/2 plant warriors that you make off of Yuma. You draw 4 cards and then you discard 3. If any of those is a desert, you will get Yuma trigger again. You will get another plant warrior to do it again. Bear in mind, if Life from the Loam is in your graveyard, you can mill dredge 3, so mill 3, and then instead of 1 you'll draw 1, so you're actually looking at 5 cards instead every time. And on top of that, because Greater Good is not a like infinite combo in the sense of it's all in one chain, like it triggers. It is a activate. You can do other things to get yourself into deserts to again put it into infinite territory. So those are what I like to call my game enders. We will put Crater Hoof at the top for obvious reasons. Not that you can fucking see it. Then we go into the ramp. Ramp matters in this deck because it is landfall. We'll go into the non-landfall triggering ones, which is Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Chromatic Lantern for obvious reasons. Then we go into the landfall triggering ones with Explore, Free Visits, and Harrow. Harrow will sack lands to get you more lands, so that also means you get potential desert sacking triggers off Yuma to get yourself some plant warriors. Attempt with Discovery, which allows you to get up to 4 lands, and all of them can be non-basic, which, as I said, the majority of this deck is not basic. There are enough basics for you to get basics, but yeah. Talking of which, Collective Voyage allows you to get all of the basics from your deck. And then you get Heartbeat of Spring, does not trigger landfall, but it basically doubles all of your mana. Also, yes, that is 2 Pride ones, because I got an entire Pride set from my partner, oh god, I want to say a year ago-ish? Because I think it was for like Christmas. I'll be honest, like, I love all the presents he gives me, but I am very bad at remembering when and where I get most of my presents, so I apologise, babe. Then we have Map to the Frontier. Once again, just gives you a bunch of land. They do enter the battlefield, so actually that goes there because it triggers landfall. Talking of which, Hour of Promise triggers landfall. Also gives you some zombies. Then this one allows you to put it onto the battlefield tapped. It is a Spring Bloom Druid. Then we get the one ramp that also doesn't trigger it, which is Abundance, but it allows you to get a land to your hand or a creature non-land to your hand, depending on what you need, to just get yourself a bunch of mana or basically what you need for the moment. Then we go into the, I would argue, is just what I would call my generic pile. So this is stuff that doesn't really have a place, but they do things for the deck. So you've got your Lightning Greaves to give hexproof to Yuma or 6 or Lumra, whatever you have need for. Perpetual Timepiece will mill land, and yeah, it just mills 2 cards. You can put land in your grave or other cards. Sun Titan to grab the thing you put to your graveyard. Skullwinder to grab the thing you put to your graveyard, and Revive to put the thing that you to grab the thing you put in your graveyard. Yeah, Revive was a ad of, oh, I have this. That could work. Just looked in my box or I'm like, yeah, I could probably do something with this. And this is what I did with this. Next we go into removal, which I do have weirdly. So I am known as the guy who doesn't run a lot of removal. This has a decent, like, a okay amount. We have the Path to Exile, we have the Bovine Intervention, we have Requisition Raid, we have Decimate, and Wreck and Rebuild, which is also removal. So we have 5 removal, which isn't bad for me, because I normally don't play that much removal, because I am basic like that. Next we go into the lands. So I'm going to separate these into separate piles. So we have the desert lands, because obviously Yuma cares about desert specifically. So we have Lazotep Quarry, which is a desert from Modern Horizons 3, which is really good. It basically goes, hey, revive any creature from your graveyard. You know that landfall thing they killed? It's back. You have to sack a desert to do it though, which again with Yuma gives you advantage. Talking of sacking deserts, why don't you sack this Dunes of the Dead and get yourself a zombie every time you do it? Sounds good, right? We get Conduit Pylons, Mirage Mesa, Cactus Preserve, Ramanap Ruins, Scavenger Grounds, Creosote Heath, Abraded Bluffs, Shefet Dunes, Bristling Backwoods, and Heshep Oasis. These are all the base deserts. Like, obviously there are ways of making things deserts and blah blah blah, but at base these are the deserts. Then we have because this is a landfall deck, we have obviously the Terramorphic Expanse, the Evolving Wilds, the Corrosion Verge, and I picked this up like this week, a Wooded Foothills, to obviously get yourself an extra land every turn. Very nice. Then we have basically good cards, like cards that are just good in general, which is Command Tower, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, a Reliquary Tower, and because this is a landfall deck, the Field of the Dead. I mean, come on. Of course it is. Then we have the generically good lands that are like dual lands. So we have the Scattered Groves and the Sheltered Thicket and the Jungle Shrine. Now, before we do hit the basics, we have one more type of land, and this land is frowned upon, but I will give you a reason why I run this after I show you what they are. We have the Strip Mine, the Wasteland, the Ghost Quarters, and the Dust Bowl. Now, this is land destruction. A lot of people hate land destruction. However, there are a lot of players that will play a Reliquary Tower and draw their entire library. There are a lot of players that will play a land that's like turns into an infect creature. They have a land that proliferates. They have a land that does this, does that, does this, does that. This is to get rid of those lands. This is not mass land removal. So if you see this and you're already going, oh, clutch my pearls, that's not what this is for. So we have the Strip Mine to destroy any land. So hey, trying to think off the top of my head, that Planar Nexus is getting you way too much advantage off your Tron. I'm going to destroy that. We have the Wasteland to destroy the Tron itself, if that's the problem. Obviously you can do it with both, but anyway. You have the Ghost Quarters, which is actually 2 uses. It has the use of removing a card that your opponent has that's a utility land that's annoying, but it also has the ability of fixing your mana. You can Ghost Quarter yourself, getting yourself another land drop for the turn, triggering landfall, but it also will get you a mana color that you don't have. So like if you're missing a mountain, you can go, right, I'm going to sack this and a land, get myself the mountain I need, getting another insect off a Scoot Swarm. And Dust Bowl is you have to pay 3 mana to do it anyway. It has to be a non-basic. Again, this is just to deal with utility lands specifically. This is not, I'm now going to destroy all of your lands. I'm not going to say it's not possible in this deck, because obviously with all this land recursion, you can just go, right, I'm just going to sack, strip mine, destroy all of your lands by keep recurring it. I disagree with that way of playing, though. So if you do that with this deck, just know I am judging you. It's literally there to deal with the really annoying non-basics. Talking of basics, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 forest, because the entire deck is, as you've noticed, the majority of it is green. Talking of which, the majority of it is white. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 white. So one less than green, and then we have 1, 2, 3 forest, which is two less than the plains, but there's not as much red. Hence why, as I said, you can like go squat yourself to get that red if you need it. You also have like a load of dual lands and stuff like command tower, so it shouldn't be that big of a problem. But if it is, you have your ways. Now, I do want to fit more landfall in this eventually, because obviously it is a landfall deck, and I will be moving bits around to do that, like probably remove the lightning greaves, etc. Probably not the greaves, but you know what I mean. But for now, that is how the deck runs. I mean, it's not the greatest deck ever. I've definitely won quite a few games out of nowhere because people don't expect the Crater Hoof, or they don't expect the Lumra, or at one point I tempted Discovery to get like 5 zombies off of a off a Field of the Dead and a Panharmonicon. That was fun. But it's definitely a deck that has teeth. It's not teeth that's immediately known, but it is enough teeth that people should be somewhat wary. I would argue, if we're talking power level, this is probably like a. Okay, I'm gonna sound like that basic bitch. This is probably like a 6. Like I wouldn't even put it to a 7. Like it, as I said, it has teeth. It does things, but it doesn't like do enough in my opinion. As I said, I need to find more landfall that I'm happy to put in there that's somewhat cheap. Maybe some better utility lands. Like maybe cut the basics down a tiny bit. Not much, because obviously Collective Voyage, but enough that I'm like, right, I can run this really good utility land that gives me, like, Maze of Vith would be really good in this deck. So I might try to find an extra copy of that for this deck specifically. But there are like utility lands that you would want, and I'm probably not playing. There's probably even more targeted land removal that's like in lands. These are the only ones I can think of, but like again, I would want to run a couple more just because it gives me easier access to it if my opponent starts popping off with a land, because it does happen. Like like the Mutavault angelic thing that keeps you alive permanently unless they have land removal. Like that's why I have this. I remember with the Tempter Discovery that I won with that got me like a load of zombies. I did search for one like targeted removal in case my opponent played a land that was just dumb, like a Rogue's Passage, and just pump up their commander to kill me. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of your Rogue's Passage, dude. Like, you know. But outside of that, the deck is fun. I just wouldn't call it the best. That being said, as I said, I will put this deck list onto Moxfield. I'll have to redo it entirely. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next one. Ta-ta.